Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. It is Tuesday, the 3rd of June. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning for the first time in a while. He's been on holiday, but he's now back. Joshua Barry joins us. How's it going, Joshua?
I'm back, and there's still no manager, Derek. I was sure. I was hoping, maybe it was just hope, that when I left about 10 days or so ago that I would come back to a manager, but no, still ongoing. Final days maybe, but still ongoing. But yeah, good to be back. I've been keeping a track from afar of you and Chris speaking often on the live stream, and hope everyone's well and is having a good week so far.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, plenty to get our teeth stuck into. We're still waiting for that managerial announcement, of course. Yeah, the sooner Rangers can get that one over the line, the better. We'll get tucked into Kevin Thelwell, of course, who started his job officially yesterday. And we'll also have a chat. Of course, Dan Purdy arrived, as well as technical director. Plenty to get stuck into, and yeah, let's do just that. Kicking off, Kevin Thelwell, of course, as we touched on, gave a statement to Rangers on the website yesterday. Said it's a great honour to be joining Rangers, particularly at such an exciting moment in the club's history, where there has been significant work going on in the background prior to my arrival. That naturally accelerates from today. And top of the priority list will be the appointment of a new head coach for our men's first team. That search has been progressing well, and the club and I look forward to bringing that to a conclusion in the coming days. This is a new chapter for Rangers, and while we recognise success won't come easy, our goal is clear. We need to win. My focus is on delivering that with discipline and ambition. We'll give everything to move this club forward as quickly and sustainably as we can. I think that the key line in there, Joshua, is regarding the appointment of a new head coach, and that's been the top of his priority list, and he hopes to bring that to a conclusion in the coming days.
Yeah, define coming days, because that that's been a phrase that has been used a lot as of late. But yeah, he comes in with a big entry, Derek, and I think one of the important considerations is that, as we keep coming back to, pre-season is the 23rd, Champions League qualifiers are mid-July. There's not a ton of time, but also the new manager, while they're not going to pioneer recruitment, and Dan Purdy and Nils Koppen come into that conversation, they will play a big part. And the type of manager that Rangers go for, and we're going to speak about Russell Martin a bit today, the type of manager that Rangers go for will influence the team style of play, will influence recruitment, and the manager obviously will have a big say on recruitment. We've discussed this at length before, haven't we? They're not going to come in with a list and say, get me this left back, this central midfielder, and this striker, but it will be a collaborative process. So that's the time pressure at the moment. Thelwell comes in to fulfill a role that Rangers have just needed for a long time and haven't succeeded well without. Scrutiny above the manager, the club have not existed well without that. And what you see, kind of, as I think we said from the start, and a lot of people have recognised from the start, Derek, is that this new ownership structure, while getting the manager in place and whoever Rangers get as their manager or head coach is very important, the structure that surrounds them is probably more important for the long term, because Rangers have been stuck in this vicious short-term cycle that's really only regressed them in recent years, hasn't it? So a positive that they finally got a sporting director in the building. I'm sure Kevin Thelwell had a busy day yesterday, and I'm sure it'll be busy for the upcoming days too, as he kind of puts the final touches on this big decision that he has to make alongside other decision makers at the club.
Yep, you mentioned the name Russell Martin. It's fair to say, I mean, it's a name that won't go away, Joshua, and he and it looks like Davide Ancelotti, the front runners for this vacancy. It's fair to say it's a name that most supporters, certainly ones I've spoken to, aren't too keen on getting the gig. I think based on whether rightly or wrongly is a poor spell as a player on loan, and the fact that his Southampton team was dismissed. Certainly someone that likes to play an attacking brand of football, but is very set in his ways, Mark Warburton-esque, if you like. And many supporters feel that he wouldn't be the right fit for Rangers. He's had a decent spell as a manager, you could say. Started off at MK Dons and then got a move to Swansea, and then quickly after that he was appointed Southampton boss. Of course, got them up via the playoffs the season before last, and then was released as Southampton had a pretty disastrous spell in the Premier League. What's your thoughts on Russell Martin, Joshua? If he was to be the guy that Rangers were looking to appoint, is there pros to that appointment? Could you see why they would go for such a guy?
Well, to put it back to you first, do you think, because obviously I've been off, so I've only been kind of around the edges of this over the past week, Derek, and as you say there, believe that Martin's under serious consideration alongside Ancelotti at the moment. But what do you think? It's more of the lack of excitement, correct me if I'm wrong, but from the conversations you've been having about Russell Martin, what do you think that comes down to? Is it the style of play? Is it does the playing spell up here that wasn't obviously glittering? Does that play into it? What do you think? What's the kind of reason behind it, so to speak?
His spell as a player shouldn't really be factored in. He was part of one of the worst Rangers teams that I've ever seen, so I don't really want to cast my mind back to that. But in terms of just his coaching, if you had a decent... Listen, if he wouldn't be linked with the Rangers job if he kept Southampton up last season and he kept his job.
Yeah,
I think he's just someone... I just saw an interview with him when they beat Leeds and get up last season, and he said he's going to continue playing the same way. He's not going to change, and that sort of sets alarm bells off for me, because he stuck to his principles, and Southampton were getting battered every week, and he's lost his job as a result of that. So that would concern me. I get that his teams play some decent stuff at times, but we could say that about other managers that have come in at Rangers at the time. I just can't see it working. I mean, it could be an absolute success, of course it could, but of the two, and I know that Ancelotti doesn't have the experience that a Russell Martin has. I'm just slightly apprehensive, and I think you'd be starting off on the back foot already, because the fans aren't too enamoured by him being linked to the job at this point in time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, whoever comes in, and we spoke about this with the hypothetical surrounding Gerrard and others, whoever comes in, as soon as they win, because of in my opinion, because of the kind of energy that's back in Rangers, that this time last year, and I was reflecting on this when the takeover was announced last Friday, to take my journalistic hat off for a second. I'm 25, and for only about of my kind of not adult conscious life, but since I was like 11 or 12, there's only been like 3 seasons really, where Rangers have had a domestic campaign that is really exciting, full of potential. And for so much of my adult life, they've just been a club that's dormant's far too extreme a word, but you know what I'm trying to say, that almost like a sleeping giant, not fulfilling their potential. And with that confirmation of the takeover, just the anticipation of not necessarily is what is going to happen, but what is possible again for a club of this size. I think you will see there's going to be so much potential next season, and that is, I think, something that it deserves a lot of attention, because there's, even just in the last 3 years we've done this, Derek, there's been so many what would you call it, discussions after games or after Rangers have lost another title, and you look at the decision making at the top of the club, you look at the management situation, and you think, how are they going to get out of this? How is there a kind of brighter future ahead? So there's that, and I while there's no guarantees over next season, thank goodness there's a bit more optimism surrounding this club.
Oh yes.
To get into Russell Martin, it's really interesting, because a lot of he's kind of like the poster boy of the dogmatic manager, because as you say, he's done so many of those speeches where he says, we're not going to change, this is who we are. And it's a fascinating concept in modern football. You see it with even Postecoglou and Amorim in the final. Amorim didn't really change. Postecoglou kind of did. Doesn't work. Do you mean staying to the original?
Long term wise, if they're going to stick to that, they're going to be out of a job.
Do you not think, though, that Guardiola, let's look at the people who've won recently. Guardiola, do you think he's obviously like the father of modern football? Do you not think he kind of epitomizes this? Dogmatism.
And it annoys me somewhat that there's coaches that look to follow in his lead, and he's sort of it angers me. You get
Angers you.
sort of Guardiola from Wish characters that try and play the same way as Guardiola, and just play just two men up top, 4-4-2, and let's go for it. Give me that any day of the week. But you can see there's sort of Guardiola disciples, if you like, Joshua, and it's not for me. I like my coaches, my managers to be pragmatic, that can change tactics, formations, not stuck in their ways. And for me, I've seen it's happened at various coaches at various levels that they've said that we're not changing, we're staying and we're sticking to my principles, and more often than not they find themselves out of a job after a while. So for me, a Rangers coach, you have to change up the style. Look at Clement. He wasn't one that was willing to do that, and he's found himself out of a job. Too stubborn.
He also didn't really have a style though, and but then Barry Ferguson came in and changed formation 5 times a game, and that didn't work. So for me, if you look at, you might not be surprised, disagree slightly with you, in that I think I'll read you this quote. It's a quote from I can't remember who it is. Someone writing about Russell Martin. I was reading it yesterday. And the quote says, in football, pragmatic tends to be a synonym for defensive or direct football. But the truth is, the vast majority of managers are pragmatists. They play how they play because they believe that is what offers them the best chance of success. Guardiola is constantly refining what that means 15 years on from the tiki-taka of his first Barcelona Champions League win. This is written last season. He's playing with a classic number 9 in Erling Haaland and has experimented with a back four comprising only of central defenders. So I think there's a scale to this, isn't there? You've maybe got your overall idea, which is that we want to dominate the ball. We want to control the game. Control's what modern managers always come back to. But there's a variety of ways to do that. You look like you've got a postman outside or something like that.
No, it's a guy picking something. My next door neighbour's dumped something for the council to pick up, I think, and he's just picked it up. But my dog is going bananas upstairs. But,
is it? All right, okay,
carry on, Joshua.
Just making sure I'm engaging you. I can't engage you, though. I'm not going to engage anyone else. But the point is, I don't think it's... And look at who's... I know this isn't a popular argument, but Celtic haven't won the Scottish Premiership the last 5 years, with Rodgers and Postecoglou the more extreme example. They've not won it by constantly tinkering formation, direct football, kind of pragmatism, if that's what the connotation of that word is. They've done it because they've had a core football idea, they've stuck to it, and that means that when different players come in to the formation, it's a plug in and play to a degree. It means that everyone knows what they're doing. It means in high pressure situations, you have something to fall back on. Rangers have been a team for a long time now, really, at least a couple of years, who you would not be able to identify them by what they do on the pitch. That's the biggest issue for me. So if you take some of Russell Martin's time at Southampton, did they concede really bad goals? And were they, I think, as he said subsequently, which obviously he probably would, but were they a worse team in the Premier League than the Championship? Yes, probably. Did they concede some terrible goals playing it from the back? Yes, probably. Is that issue, are Rangers going to be pressed as aggressively in the Scottish Premiership that you're going to see them concede goals playing out from the back all the time? If Russell Martin is the manager, I would clip me up in 6 months, but I would be surprised. Will it happen time and again? Yes, but I don't think I don't think that's as much of an issue. And it only really became an issue, I think, in Martin's style of play when they got to the Premier League, which is the pinnacle of football. He probably had the worst squad, and you maybe need a little bit of luck along the way to go with it. He is someone who has a track record of, in a very much the vein of a modern day manager, of being able to say, this is what my team's gonna look like, and quote owners of football clubs, sporting directors like that. So that's kind of where I stand. I do think Rangers need a manager who, yes, has a degree of variation, like Guardiola does. He's not sticking to, we have to play our fullbacks this way. He has a core idea that we want to control the ball and everything flows from that. I want Rangers to have a manager who has a core idea, because for too long, I think they've been a team who have completely lacked that. And that's harmed them.
Do you think his style of play would suit Rangers, Joshua, in the Scottish Premiership?
Well, interestingly, when Rangers had this long list, I was speaking to someone with knowledge of it, and they were saying that there's a variety of coaches on there, some from the Red Bull school of thought, and obviously that links into the Leeds links and the 49ers links, and some more possession-heavy coaches. And I was saying, do you think that kind of... Do Rangers at Ibrox, do they just need to play a certain way? Are supporters ever going to get alongside with a team that plays 700, 800 passes at home, or do they just want to get the ball forward quickly? And the point put back to me was, well, Clement kind of tried to do that. Verticality is the word they always used. Okay, maybe it wasn't very well coached, and someone like a Danny Roll or a Marco Rose would probably be able to implement it better. But the issue I think you incorporate a lot with that is that Rangers are a team who are probably going to have 60% of the ball in a lot of these games, and they need to be able to do something with it. And Martin's football, again, I don't think it's... I'm sure there'd be elements of it being slow at points. I'm not going to pretend that I've sat and watched every single one of his games in his management career for the past 4 years. But again, what would stick out to me as a positive is when he speaks about his football, the first thing he talks about is control of the ball. When Clement spoke about his football, the first thing he spoke about was duels and verticality and attacking quickly. And everyone saw what happened there. Rangers just could not control games with the ball. And we've used this example 100 times. But how many games can you think of off the top of your head last season where Rangers had 60% of the ball? Did they look really good? The games where they played well, the memorable nights of last season, were all fixtures in which they only had about 40% possession. So would it work? I'm sure there'd be small things he would need to adapt. I don't think the build-up issue would be so pronounced because, are Dundee going to come and press Rangers man for man in the opposition box at Ibrox? I don't think so. I'm sure there'd be things that need to be fleshed out. But looking at his career so far, the fact he took Southampton up to the Premier League, I think he would also be able to coach a style. Now, that's not discussing the risks, of which there are, I'm sure, many, and the fact that maybe he will be too dogmatic at points. Maybe Ibrox won't take to a style if it's all in front of the opposition. That is my top line thoughts, which I'm sure many people will take issue with. But that's fine, because it's a game of opinions, Derek.
Yeah, you never know. Dundee might be attacking now that they've appointed Stephen Presley as their new boss. That was a bit of a surprise. Stephen Presley, he was doing a good job down at Brentford, I think, with the academy. But a bit of a left field appointment. I think he's someone that Gordon Strachan knows. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on there at Dens Park. Lots of comments coming in on the subject of Russell Martin. I love this podcast. TV says, correction, Derek, the Doug is going bananas at the thoughts of Martin. Not a fan of his style of play. We all like a drink now and again, but I think it's a bit too early. Maka says, push the boat out for Luis Enrique. That would certainly be something. Craig McCutcheon says, thank the Lord for Joshua Barry speaking some sense about Martin. I'm not too sure if that's Russell's alias on here or whatever, but he's certainly a fan of what you're saying just now. And JG says, I think to put it simply, Russell Martin's appointment would kill the buzz of the new takeover for a majority of the fan base. So he's not having it one bit, as JC there as well. So interesting stuff. I think we're due, as Kevin Thelwell says, Joshua. I think we're coming to the end game. Thank the Lord for that, because it's about time that this is put to bed and we can start talking about transfers. I know there are a number of players that have been linked to the club already. Whether that changes with the departure of Nils Koppen, it remains to be seen. Of course, Dan Purdy has come in to work with Kevin Thelwell. But there is a bit of a handover as well, Nils, before he departs, and he's just helping the new guys settle in, I would imagine. I've seen images of Dan Purdy arriving at the Rangers training centre yesterday. Be interested in that, though, because there have been players linked, like Cameron Burgess from Ipswich, Josh Mulligan from Dundee in recent weeks. Joshua, if those deals will come to fruition, or if Rangers look to identify different players.
Yeah, we had a podcast with Stevie, I think, 2 weeks ago, in which we were talking around what to expect from the transfer window, and what a lot of us were hearing at the time is everything's kind of on pause for the moment. As you say there, I think we're led to believe the end in there and between Nils Koppen and the club, and Dan Purdy coming in was amicable. Kevin Thelwell and Greta Steinson have both worked with Purdy. They want their own guy in early. I think that just happens in football, and there's been so much change, even just the 18 months that Koppen's been at. Ibrox, or was at Ibrox and in the job. I know there was a lot of ire directed his way when he was promoted to technical director at the time. And also alongside that, Derek, I'd say that we've spoken about the recruitment a lot. Has there been mistakes? Yes. In any transfer window, I think it's about 60% of transfers are successful. It's not the highest of bars. And also you had last season the reality of trying to bring the wage bill down significantly by a number of million, which Rangers did. I think if you'd had Koppen maybe trying to bring in the likes of Egerman and Jeffy and talents into a squad that was already established, maybe the narrative would be slightly different, having to rebuild a squad and get the likes of Connor Goldson out of the club, who's obviously on pretty significant wages, or John Lundstrom, and replacing them with players who are fundamentally coming in for less money, and in some situations a short-term fix, like Robin Proper, who, again, we've spoke about this before, but led to believe that he's a player that the club want to sell this summer, and those links to FC20 coming out from his homeland, don't ignore them, because I would not be surprised if they come to fruition, although I'm led to believe that's still at a discussion stage. All of that to say, you're now getting to a situation where Thelwell will probably want to pivot in a slightly different direction, and Purdy is his guy. Everton wanted to keep him up until a couple of months ago. If you were reading what was coming out of sources down at Everton, that was unlikely. They were saying that Purdy was going to come to Glasgow purely because Everton wanted to keep him in this new setup. So I would expect there to be, to what degree I don't know yet, but I would expect there to be a slightly different pivot in terms of the direction the Rangers are going. Up until last month, they were still pretty heavily invested in trying to recruit more for South America. Will that remain? Will they continue to do that? And you look at someone like Egerman and Chefty. While Bayrami and Proper and Cortez, Cortez is maybe a slightly different situation, but those two first players haven't worked. You're going to make a lot of money on the likes of Egerman, on the likes of Jeffy, and even I'd argue if it works with Clinton and Ciala and amongst others. So interesting to see what happens next, because there's a lot of work that needs done on this squad. But again, that's probably influenced somewhat by the manager that comes in. Does he have a history with some of these players? Unlikely, but does he know of them? Is there certain individuals who he thinks he can get more out of? What is the rough style of play he's going to adopt? We've spoken before about, for example, Jack Butland. If it were to be Russell Martin and he wants his goalkeeper to be a real, I don't know, really comfortable with the ball, does that work with Butland, who we've seen have issues in some of these high-profile games? So loads and loads of details that they're going to have to get right and get right quickly, because it's not long until the football starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of comments coming in. Just on Cameron Burgess seen Ipswich Town, as John says, Ipswich keen to keep him at what did Ipswich play? I can't quite remember again.
Championship.
Portman
Road.
Yeah, Portman Road. That's
Portman
it.
Road.
Yeah, they've offered him a new deal, so they are very keen on keeping him as they bid to get back into the Premier League. Another player that's been linked, and we've discussed him on a show before, Josh. I'm not quite sure if you were on with me, but Connor with the point. What do you think of the Jamie Vardy links, lads? Seen that when Sky were doing their sort of newspaper roundup in transfer rumours. The Daily Mail had it that Rangers, one of a number of clubs keen on Jamie Vardy. It's also said that he's got interest from the MLS and Saudi Arabia. 38 years of age now, Jamie Vardy departed Leicester upon the expiry of his contract at the end of last season. Now looking for a new club. Scored 9 goals in the Premier League last season as part of a really poor Leicester side. Still think he can do a job for someone. I wouldn't mind Jamie Vardy at Ibrox, Joshua, if he wants to come in as sort of a la Jermaine Defoe type role. If he was to arrive at Rangers, he would want to be the main man, I reckon. I don't think you'd be too happy being sat on the bench and coming on and being a bit part player. Your thoughts on Jamie Vardy?
He'd have to be a bit part player, wouldn't he? Because he's 38, and that's again something
Looks
that has been put... Yeah, does he? Well, I guess he does at 38, but He's famous for his Red Bulls in the.
Well, there you go.
He's not the player who comes. Yeah, true. He's not the player who comes to mind when you say look after yourself. Clearly, he has, because he's 38 and he's had one of the incredible football careers. But that caught me off guard. Expect Rangers to keep spending money on players under the age of 25, because smart business people are now are running the club, and that is going to be implemented right from the very top. Is there room for experience in certain situations? If you had, for example, Hamza Egeman as your number one striker, someone else is number two, Danilo maybe, because you might not be able to get good value for him this year, and you do get rid of Cyril Dessers, and Vardy comes in to compete. Do I mind that? No, because you would obviously score a lot of goals up here, because he's as you say, he's been playing in the Premier League as recently as recent months. Don't expect him to come in as the number one forward, but I don't know. You never know. I can't claim to have any knowledge of the link, but it's clearly come out from down south.
Yeah,
he's not coming in to be number one striker, is he? Come on, like he's not.
you want to know.
Yeah, but he's also almost 40.
I know, but age is just a number. As long as he looks after himself. He's been playing in the Premier League for several years now, and very top level. As I mentioned, he scored 9 goals last season. I think he could still do a job, but I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be opposed to someone like that coming in. I think that there is room for, we've discussed the need for experience before, and what type of experience Rangers need. I certainly think a seasoned pro up top would be good. Number of decisions to be made up top. The comment came in, actually. It said that would, if Vardy was to arrive, it would push Egeman out wide again. I think it's important we see Egeman in his favoured position next season. Through the middle, please, would be good. Dessers, of course, scored last week, Joshua, for Nigeria. Well-taken goal. He's in fine fettle himself. I could see him potentially moving on. Then there's the Danilo question as well. Listen, we know this Rangers are going to have a brand new look team by the start of next season, but certainly up top, I want to see more of Egeman through the middle, please.
Yeah, someone WhatsApped me, as I'm sure everyone received, the Dessers and Sadiq assist, which just...
It wasn't Sadiq, it was...
Is it not?
Sure. No.
Oh, was that... have I been doctored?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a shame. Well,
as much as that would have been a dream scenario, bring him home is what I say. Bring him home, and then we can see it in real life at Ibrox.
Yeah, well, I wasn't thorough enough to check, so that ruins that slightly for me. But
good finish, though.
Yeah, good finish. Just play Egeman. No, we've spoken about this to death. If Rangers can keep hold of him, because there's a lot of interest, I would not be surprised if you see a sale at some point before the Champions League qualifiers. Again, these are decisions that are going to have to be made quickly as Rangers look to squad build. We've spoken about Nico Raskin at length, entering the final 2 years of his contract. His stock is probably as high as it ever will be. Egeman is on a longer contract. He's still got 4 years to run. But if a big offer comes in, can Rangers afford to turn that down? He scored, 16, 17 goals last season, but he actually probably only played, I would guess, about 10, 12, 13 games as an out-and-out number 9, Egeman.
Yeah.
He's not a left winger. He suits that. The one thing that Rangers stumbled upon last season and then never really went back to it was when you had Danilo and Egeman and Hadji, and it was really just two clever players around Egeman who they rotated a bit. They could each do different things, and it gave the opposition a few different problems. But we didn't see that again. If Egeman is there next season, he is your starting number 9. No question for me. Because you're not... Does he have rough edges? Yes. But look at what he can do. Put a good coach with him who can extract the best bits of his game and finesse out the bits that aren't as good. And I think he'll score a lot more than 15 next season.
Right, before we wrap up, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors. We've got a new sponsor, folks, the great guys at Willows Fencing. They're a Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust and are proud partners of the Rangers Review. They've got over 20 years of experience and unparalleled quality. Their qualified team is dedicated to keeping customers happy and providing exceptional work, aiming to deliver nothing but perfection in every job. They've got free consultations, whether it's a small-scale refurbishment or a large-scale complete fencing project. There's no task that they cannot or will not tackle. And Rangers Review viewers, you get 10% off with the code Rangers Review. Just head over to willows/fencing.com or willows-fencing.com. You can see the ticker below your screen if you're watching us on YouTube and on Facebook as well. Right, big thank you to Joshua as ever, and thank you to you all for tuning into the show. Very much appreciated. If there is any developments, I say this at every show that we're on at the moment, make sure you subscribe to not only the website, but the channel. Keep your eyes peeled on the social media channels as well. Let's hope that there's an emergency briefing at some point this afternoon or tomorrow or whatever, because we want to get this manager situation wrapped up, please. If we don't speak to you later, folks, enjoy your Tuesday, whatever you are doing, and we'll chat to you again soon. Bye for now.